But first, with the surprise snap elections here in France just 2 weeks away, French unions and left-wing parties have called for mass protests across the country this weekend against the growing influence of the far right, with most protests taking place this Saturday afternoon. Police say they're expecting a considerable turnout of between 50,000 to 100,000 participants. Well, for more, let's cross now to our reporter Carys Garland, who's following those protests for us here in Paris. Carys, first of all, give us a picture of what the ambience is like where you are and what we're expecting to see today.
Well, first of all, we've seen a big police presence already lining the streets surrounding the Place de la République where we are right now. And each union that has called for these protests will have its own security presence as well for their convoys. But as you said, the 50 to 100,000 people will be responding to calls to protest from these 5 unions, several human rights groups, and also this new left-wing coalition, the coalition that was that managed to rally in the days after the announcement of dissolving Parliament to put aside their differences and come up with a common program and put forward common candidates. Surveys for local media that have been done here are trying to establish what's going to happen now. This after the far right here in France garnered over 30% of last weekend's vote for the European Parliament elections. A surprise, really, that even Macron's own party didn't see coming. Macron's party didn't even get half of those votes, and the left wing now is really trying to pull together to try to counter the far right. Surveys that have been done suggest that the far right national rally will garner about between 30 and 33% in the first round of voting for these legislative elections, whereas this new left-wing coalition called the New Popular Front will get between 25 and 28, and Macron's party just 20%.
And the turnout for the EU elections was roughly around 51% here in France, which is slightly up from the last one, but still not substantial. Obviously, with such a strong performance from the far right, as you mentioned, has this been a sort of wake-up call for France?
Well, some analysts say that Macron's move in this shock announcement was aimed at shocking people out of their complacency and trying to get them to the polls in 2 weeks. He's hoping to show that the results in the EU elections don't mirror the real domestic sentiment here in France. One poll from Harris Interactive suggested that 66% of French people are in favor of going to the polls again, but other observers say that Macron's move was very dangerous, reckless, bold. But certainly it was a wake-up call in the sense that we did see this rally from the left, parties that are typically quite fractured, often have troubles agreeing with each other. They have put forward a common program, as I mentioned, but we are this Saturday starting to see a few tensions, particularly in the left-wing France and the hard-left France Unbowed party over which candidates they are putting forward. Some denouncing the candidacy of one MP who has been convicted for domestic violence.
All right, thanks so much for that update. We'll, of course, continue to follow those mobilizations as they continue throughout the day. Carys Garland reporting for us there in Paris.